Hi, everybody, and welcome to In Her Words. Layne Eskridge is president and co-founder of POV Entertainment. She is really the ideal person to speak to our women in entertainment community. We love how and why she and her colleagues started POV and the support they give each other. This is really a master class for the creative executive. We hope you enjoy. Layne, thank you so much for being with us today. I'm so excited to talk to you. You have well, first of all, we have so many paths that cross that I was loving doing the research, but you have such an interesting story with your career and how you got started in POV. So I just want to thank you for taking the time to be with us. You are exactly the kind of woman, of leader, of creator that our audience loves to hear from.
Thank you for having me, Gretchen. I went to an all girls school from preschool to 12th grade. So I am all about all women. When I heard about this, I was like, I'm all up for this, like lady power to the umpteenth. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, let's dive in. Let's dive in kind of where you started. So you didn't always know that you wanted to be in film. I love the statement that you made where you kind of figured out that your superpower was going to be collecting and amplifying other people's stories.
Mhm.
And can you talk a little bit about that? About kind of, we love to hear about career paths and how you thought you were on this one, but things, veer around. So can you talk a little bit about when you really kind of knew what you wanted to do?
Sure. I just like your job, it's not at a job fair. So there was a lot of trial and error. And which I think is really great. I think my parents gave me that the freedom, and like I've always been very curious. So it wasn't like other households where they were like, you have to be a doctor, or you have to be a lawyer, or this is the family business and you're gonna join it and work with us. They really were like, my school, my parents were, they taught you how to learn. And then
Mm-hmm.
from there, they gave you the freedom to kind of figure out where you were best fit. And my parents got divorced when I was really young. And I'm an only child. So it was me and my dad. And we would go to the movies every weekend or go to basketball games or go to a play. And so I grew up with arts and entertainment kind of
Okay.
being the center of my leisure time.
Uh-huh.
And I was very interested on how I could make it a career. I just didn't know what area I wanted to go in. So I just began to check things off my list. I did a lot of plays in high school and quickly decided I was not going to be in front of the camera. I was kind of like, like I was more interested in behind the scenes,
Mhm.
read a lot as a child and in college and in grad school. And so I stumbled upon this
Mhm.
by basically, I say I grew up at NBC Universal and I started in the trailer department.
Mhm.
And that felt like I was getting closer, but I was more interested in the projects before they were getting made, like in that decision.
Okay.
And so then I went to NBC and I was in physical production, and again got a little closer. But in physical production, you're basically assigned shows and then you make them. So
Mhm.
I went the next step back to development at Universal Cable, and then when I got there and it was like we were hearing pitches and reading scripts and meeting with writers, I was like, I found it. But
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was looking for, you know?
Right.
So it took me
Right.
a little bit to get there. Yeah.
I love that where it's almost like the pieces that were wrong led you to keep
Yeah.
looking. It was like it could have been 95% right, but there was something that wasn't quite there that that took you to, like, I need to look a little further back. I need to go a little further back in the
Yeah.
process and see where, and did you right away start thinking when you were reading scripts or when you were at the very starting of or start of production, did you start thinking this could be, this could have a different voice?
Mhm.
These people can be, they can be all women, they can be all people of color, they can be, did you start kind of thinking about it then, or how did that come about where you were like, no, this doesn't have to look like this?
Interesting. So, that's funny. What I would say is some of my favorite movies and television shows growing up um felt very I like stuff where I can see myself represented
Hmm.
and where the
Hmm.
experience feels recognizable to me
Hmm.
or someone I know. And I would say that there were shows that I felt like totally captured life as I know it, but the people didn't look like me.
Right,
And
right.
so that became important to me to broaden the portrayal of women and people of color on TV because, there were these white guys at the center of these stories that I deeply related to. And I was
Hmm.
like, we should see another Born Ultimatum. We should have another, like there were these high octane kind of
Hmm.
adventures that I really loved, action adventures, and then these thrillers, and the leads would always be guys and
Right.
normally white guys. And I just began to think, I relate to this or I see this, and why not someone that looks like me, or not why not a woman? And
Hmm.
so when I left NBC Universal, I went to Ellen DeGeneres' production company, and my boss at the time is this wonderful person who's become a mentor and a friend of mine. His name is Jeff Kleeman. And I told him, I was like, hey, since we're at Ellen, I would like to focus on women and people of color if possible.
Hmm.
So I'm not going to bring you a writer that's not a woman or a man of color. And he was really good with that. So I think too, because I was a junior executive at that time, those were the people that I was prioritizing, and therefore those are the people that, like, now as a senior member of this industry, those are the people I rely on, because those were the ones that I was reading to staff, and those were the ones that I was trying to get, those entry level jobs. So like my peers that were writers,
Right,
and those
right.
became the people that I actually work with now. But I love that question. I would never have thought of it that way, but it was just simply like I knew I could do these things and I could be the center of these stories. And so I wanted to see more people that look like me. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. With So you're still very, very young. So you were obviously very young and new in your
Thank you.
career when you did this. But I think for our listeners, where did that where did that come from to be able to say that to Jeff, or to, and to be able to talk, whether it was at Universal or at Ellen, to was it the atmosphere that was created that was like, I can voice my thoughts about this, or was that something internal, or both, that you felt comfortable being able to say, hey, I want to see somebody else do something like Matt Damon does in Born Ultimatum, or
Mhm.
where did that voice or that strength come from? Because a lot of people kind of waver in that.
Gretchen, you're gonna laugh, but like my mom will tell you that from kindergarten on, I always got comments, something like Layne is a really good student. She always turns her work in on time, but she is distracting to others in the class. Like I have
It should
always,
be and, not but.
and
And
that was always the comment. I have always
yeah.
been super social. I think I have a superpower that I can like say, almost anything to anyone. So it works really well when you're giving critiques and notes. But I am a social person. So I think I have always had it in me. But, I think when you work at a network or when you work at a studio, there is a great responsibility to that. And
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
always, because I started my first executive job, I was a producer. And so, in a lot of ways, you can't do your job until someone else says yes. So, when I actually became the network executive and became the person to say yes or no, I just took that responsibility very, very, very seriously. And I knew how much someone had put into, like, for me, it's an hour of my day, right? When you hear the pitch, but having been on the other side first, I knew how much went into that. And so I felt like there was a great responsibility there to take the job very seriously and make sure that, because I didn't look like everyone in the room and my background wasn't the same, I was like, you guys
Mhm.
need to hear what I'm thinking. I also, we like, there's a lot of research out, and Black women watch television more than any other group. So, foolishly or not, I felt like everyone should know my opinion because I
Mhm.
represented a
Mhm.
very strong core galvanizing audience for television.
Right, right. No, and it shows in, the quality of what I was going through, all the things that you worked on and all of the women that, that you say are role models, that strength. And I could talk to you for days about Ozark and the different and the female characters in Ozark that, we can that are, that were the crux of the show and the strength in the show, and some of, and some of your others, but the women that you say, you look up to, and your role models, and the Bonnie Hammers and Danas and Avas, and these, what what did you see in them that made you, want to do this, but made you, and again, made you comfortable in voicing your, using your voice and growing, and how did you see those women that kind of let you be free to do, say what you wanted to do, the do the work you wanted to, and kind of grow to be them?
Hmm. So Cindy Holland is one of my role models that I got an opportunity to work really closely with. And I think Cindy is just an amazing leader. And there were a lot of qualities in the way that she ran Netflix, that I aspired to. And it was this confidence, this poise, but also like we had, when I was at Netflix, it was a flat system. So literally the best idea um that's what we went with. And I think that takes a very strong and self-assured woman. And I think, Bonnie Hammer definitely displayed that. I mean, she was really a trailblazer, like head of a studio, and a woman, and just had, like, I mean, we were making the best shows at under
Mhm.
that, ecosystem under her leadership. And Dana's just always, I've never worked with her, but she's always someone, we're working with her now as a production company and
Mhm.
as a chairwoman, but she's just so together. And I love how all three of them, it's the advocacy for the story and also the agenda for the company, that they all three really balance very well.
Mhm.
And you just kind of know where they're going. They had all three of them had vision that I can articulate for that moment. Like, you could tell. And
Mhm.
I like that. I think that is leadership at its core, is being able to like guide people where you're going, like have a vision that people want to get behind. And that was definitely with Cindy, and I was much younger when I was at NBC Universal in my career, but I
Mhm.
felt that with Bonnie and was just like so happy that I worked at a studio led by a woman. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I can see the projects that you're choosing and working on at POV, that obviously quality projects and quality, crews and talent on these projects, and how does it blend with why you started the company?
Mm-hmm.
And I can, yeah, you absolutely can see that you took. I didn't know what you saw in them, but I immediately can see what you're saying, that you admired in those women and how they ran their companies, exactly how you've structured what you're doing.
Yeah.
Let's go back a little bit to when you decided that you wanted to start POV.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I mean, I don't even, you can't sugarcoat it. It was a terrible time in
Sure.
our country.
Yeah.
It was a terrible time. We didn't know what the entertainment industry was going, what it was going to look like, what it was going to, what was going to come out of this, whether it was the pandemic, whether it was George Floyd, whether it was politics, just all of these things. And there was a lot of, which I think we're seeing a kind of the backlash, or not the backlash, but just the wave of it now. There was a lot of false promises, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things that were just thrown out there to, and then there were a lot of things that were real. And so, how take us through the thought of starting any business right at that point, and then starting a business as a Black woman and as a woman who wanted to really grow the view that the world has in their entertainment choices. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think television in particular is a group sport. And so it's hard to do anything on your own. And um POV is no different. It was actually the brainchild of another amazing Black woman, Ashley Holland, and then a great ally in Joe Hips, because they had been talking about internally under the Endeavor um, ecosystem, like what they could do to show up in this moment after George Floyd was murdered. And it's my understanding, because I wasn't there, that Ashley said that what Endeavor Content specifically could do was put more money into Black producers' hands. And um, I think after that, Joe Hips asked Ashley who he should talk to about this.
Mm-hmm.
And she said to call me. And Joe and I have a really long history as well, because we did Ozark together when I was at Netflix, and I had just bought a series with him that he was he was the studio on at Apple. And I thought Joe was calling me about the deal for that show, and I didn't have an update. So I actually didn't call him back right away. And I have this text from Ashley, which I will save forever, that says, "Call Hips back. He's calling to change your life. He's not calling about the show," because she actually sold me
I
the show.
chills. That just oh my gosh.
It was great. And then from there, the three of us had several in-depth conversations about, what this would look like and
Mhm,
what the focus would be,
mhm.
and, like what it would take. And so the three of us actually built POV together. So I can't say the idea did not start with me. I'm just the executor. And I thought that I would stay on the buying side because I love saying yes. And again, I think it takes a certain, like, fearless advocate that I have been for shows and storytellers. I thought it was necessary to do that work on that side. So I think I had planned, like, it was a far off dream that I had shared with Ashley, that she made happen much
Mhm.
sooner than I actually intended to work it out. But I'm so glad she did. And you're right, it was a weird time because the three of us we couldn't even be in the same room together,
Right,
like
right.
it was a strange time. But POV, I'm super proud. We've been around not even 4 years yet. And we have two series that are on air, another series that we're working on, and a host more of development. And I think that's like a lot to get accomplished in a
Mhm.
very short amount of time. So I'm super proud, but it's been with, like, partnership. It has not
Right,
been
yeah.
just me by myself. Yeah.
No, yeah, nothing ever is it?
Yeah.
What, was there anyone that told you guys no? That said you're crazy, don't do this?
No, and I think, again, like, that was the worst time in my life, like, in terms of what was happening
Right,
with
right.
COVID and George Floyd being murdered. Like, that was just I have not seen a darker time for the world yet, and hope not to. But there was something really great born out of that
Mhm,
moment for
mhm,
me and for entertainment, I think, with POV and other projects and
mhm,
companies that came out of that moment. I actually think,
mhm.
and you're right, there were a lot of promises. What I would say, especially in our business, it takes at least 3 years to make these shows. So in terms of the commitment
Yeah.
Hollywood made, I actually look at it, and I think that there is a lot of deliver on some of those things that started in 2020. And I would just say, I hope that we're all given the opportunity and runway to continue on. Like, if things don't
Right.
happen immediately, like, people still need to invest. Like I was really sad to see so many chief diversity officers go away without another plan in place. And I don't think that's the right way to handle it, but it's
Mhm.
kind of like that was born out of that moment, and then it like, quickly died after like a contract maybe, and it's like, why? Because you gotta, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? These things take a lot of time, you
Yeah.
can't just say, you can pivot, but you can't just give up. And I think that was the thing that was so frustrating about that initiative, is that
Mhm.
like all these chiefs were hired to kind of be advisors to these companies and kind of change the face of these companies, and then it was just like done. And
Right.
I was at NBC Universal with Paula Madison, who's another mentor of
Mhm.
mine, and her strategy of diversity and inclusion worked. Like I am literally one of those assistants, because it was about creating a pipeline. I am one of those assistants that became a stakeholder, a gatekeeper in this industry, and I would not have gotten that opportunity had it not been for Paula Madison and her team and her and the plan that she had.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I was frustrated about that, because I'm like, it works. It actually works, but you have to look, I've been in this business 16 years, so it takes a minute. Yeah.
No, it does. Everything was, yeah, way, way, way too quick to be, it didn't work cut off or it doesn't need to. And, places where it did work, they did the real work.
Yeah.
Not, it wasn't just like, a label or a title or a moment in time. It was a real commitment.
Well
So
said.
now that you know, moving out of the studio system into your own, which obviously you're still very, very closely attached to, the studios and the
Mhm.
streamers and all the different platforms. How has your sense of responsibility or your how has that changed where you're a decision maker from A to Z now on everything? How has your kind of day to day changed, and what are you loving about it, and what keeps you up at night?
The lifestyle is much different. And I think I went from incoming calls to being the bugaboo, which is hard for me. You know what I mean? Like I hate following up and bugging people, because I think I always believe everyone has the best intentions, and that they intend to read that script, and that, you know what I mean? They intend to return that phone call. But I think that has just, being Layne at whatever huge company, to now they pick up because they know the name, but I'm having to make those calls. It is a much
Mhm,
different cadence. It is a much different cadence. But once we get into production, it's very, we work super close with our network and studio partners. So
mhm,
I
mhm,
feel like in a lot of respects, it's just kind of like how we get to the project, but the job is very, very, very similar. And what keeps me up at night? I mean, I again, I take very seriously the responsibility when someone options a book to me, and it's like their labor of love, and it did super
yeah.
well. And a lot of our business is books to series, and
Mhm,
the first three shows we're doing are book to series. So I take that very, very, very responsibly seriously. And I think before it was kind of you know, again, a group thing, but now it's like I looked this person in the eye. I said I would get their book done, and I have to get that done. Or they
right,
gave me
right.
the original idea. I said I would make that happen. Like I have to do that. Or you signed on to star in my project. Like looking at you directly to make sure you have a good time. Like I feel much more. Um, well, I always did too, but I think that's what keeps me up at night, is making sure that we're delivering on our promises to our partners. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm. And how do you keep you with all of these projects that when like you're talking about, you've got, two on and coming, and how do you keep your creative energy up for multiple projects? Because you can't just be working on one thing at a time. Your company doesn't survive. So what are some of the things you do? What are some of the tools you have to keep your energy up for every project? And like you said, to be able to look, these people in the eye and know you're taking care of their project.
Mhm. That is, I feel like I am at times the like I'm a social worker and at times I feel like I'm a cheerleader, which is great. But um we I think what I would say is there's different moments where you have to be like focused on different projects at different times. Like it's not everything is happening at the same time. But what I do is I take really copious notes when I read a book. Like I have the synopsis that I got from my assistant. I have the book, and then I have like the things Layne loves. And so when I have a big meeting about a project or I'm about to talk to a writer about their project, I have this list on my phone. And it would be funny maybe to read some of the ones from like I should go back and look, but it's like I try to prioritize like what was exciting to me and I try to approach that. And I feel like I'm one that sometimes I struggle with imposter syndrome, and I think a lot of people do. So Cindy Holland actually told me this when I started Netflix, like being overly prepared. So when I tell you, like I am noted myself to death, like about the things that I want and what I don't want to forget. And we get all this money to make these projects and like to put on the screen, the money to put on the screen. It's a really big deal. Like I take it very seriously because not everybody gets to do this. So like I don't want to miss anything. Like I want to make sure like we are doing this at the highest quality, highest level. So if someone brings up like, early on that we should be looking at this person to guest and like we have something that we have a particular star that we want to be in 2 episodes of something, and we've been talking about this for like 3 years. I am like waiting for that moment to approach that person, you know what I mean? Like I approach it by being like overly prepared, and I think then that keeps my energy up because I'm always talking about it like it's happening like right now, even though that's actually just not the cadence of television development. It takes so long. But
Right,
me,
right.
myself, I just keep reminding myself of the things that are exciting, what's to come, who we should be partnering with it. Like I'm just always thinking in that kind of way. I think I've always been a producer, I guess, like even when I was a network exec, but like that, I hype myself up because I have these notes that are kind of funny. Yeah.
Yeah, that production mentality is definitely a specific skill set that we
Mhm.
hear over and over. Like, I guess way back when I really was producing, or I really was a
Yeah.
producer when, when someone has that. So when you and your partners talk about POV, do you want it to have a specific brand,
Mhm.
or are you really looking to, whether it's genre, whether it's actors you work with, whether it's, the studios that you partner with, are you looking to be very wide, or what? I know you guys are your babies in the industry as far as, 4 years old, but how do you think about almost your mission and
I
what
was
you're
just
going
gonna say,
forward?
I think we want, in terms of the slate, we want it to be very broad and have
Mhm.
multiple genres and all different kinds of stories represented. But in its mission, and particularly when I think mission, I think audience,
Mhm.
we are speaking very specifically to women.
Mhm.
And not necessarily women of color, but we are speaking to women strongly, loudly,
Mhm.
like we are making TV for them. So there will be romance in a historical piece. There will
Mhm.
be, like we will deliver on an experience of a certain age group and a location for a person or a job. Like that is,
Mhm.
we're very specifically speaking to women and what
Mhm.
we find interesting. And so not necessarily like I want to do everything, but I want to make sure like if we're doing a horror project, it is like literally
Mhm.
like the women come out to see it. If
Right,
it's
right.
action adventure, it's there's an access point for women. Yeah.
Okay, okay. And Lady in the Lake, oh, it is just so good.
Thank you, right?
So
I'm
good.
so excited for everyone to
Oh,
see the whole
it
thing. It's
is,
good.
yeah. I mean, the cast is so good, but there's so and there, there's so much more to it. Obviously, the story's fantastic. The fashion, or the clothes and the tie. It's just, yeah, it is. It's so mold, and I think there's there's all of that. There's all of that. It doesn't have to be a dumb story because
Right.
there's great costuming, or it doesn't
Right.
have to be, we as women can appreciate, we can have a smart story, and we can have something that's wonderful to look at, and we can have, mystery or horror or whatever, action, whatever
Mm-hmm.
the genre may be. When we get those projects that are so multi-layered, that, I mean, you see the people turn out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think honestly, I think that there's so much happening when you make these shows that sometimes people forget that the number one goal should to be
Right.
entertain, to entertain and to like reach an audience. And so I'm like,
Mhm.
that is the only goal we have at POV, is to like speak to an audience that's important to us,
Mhm.
and make sure they're entertained. Like that's it.
Can you talk about any projects that are coming soon? We are huge fans of Nia DaCosta here.
Mhm.
I saw that you're working on a graphic novel with her and Ryan Coogler, but we did, when I was running ArcLight Cinemas in LA, and Nia had just done Little Woods,
Mhm.
and we got to do a screening of Little Woods through ArcLight and Women in Entertainment, and I got to do a Q&A, sit down with Nia,
Wow.
and oh my god, I mean, it was, and she had just heard about Candyman, and it was one of my just favorite conversations that I've ever had with a filmmaker. She was so lovely, and when I was reviewing, I was like, oh, I want to know what this project is. So is that still going? Is that something
That
you guys are
project
doing?
is still going.
Good.
Can't talk much about it, but you've done your research, and wow. The only thing I would say is I love that. First of all, I love that you were there during that, premiere of Littlewoods, and also because that movie, again, I'm
Right.
from Ohio, and to see Tessa in that space and Nia directing that, it's just like, of course, like, and I think people were really surprised that it came from that. But I'm like, of course, like I love that. Like Little Woods would
Mhm.
100% be a POV
Yeah.
show. And I think like that, to me, we talked a lot about Little Woods like at POV when we were making Manhunt, because
Uh-huh.
Manhunt is written and show ran by a woman of color, directed, the first part of it was directed by Carl Franklin and then produced by us. So to me, it's again those stories in those places you don't expect to see people. But what I was gonna say about that project, because we can't talk too much about the creative, but Nia, I worked with Nia on Top Boy, and
Oh, okay, okay.
so we've worked together before. Dying to work with her again. Just one is, she's just, as you know, a lovely human being,
Oh,
but I have never met someone so prepared. Like we were, we both happened to be in London, and her manager put us together and was like, just have, I know you're looking for directors for
mhm.
this, but also like have lunch with her. She's just like a lovely human. And I don't even know that we were supposed to talk about Top Boy, but she was aware that it was something we were bringing back. She came to the lunch with storyboards.
Oh my god.
And I was like, well, then obviously, and I was a huge fan of her movie. So I was
Yeah.
like, you must do this then. And it just, she brought me in, and I was like, yes, we need her. It was also like she was talking about the characters in the original and the male gaze, and how she loved the characters, but how
Mhm,
she could bring something else to it. And I knew
mhm.
exactly what she was talking about, and I was like, this is exactly what we need. And she did episodes 3 and 4,
Okay.
and today they're still the two of my favorite episodes in that whole show. Like she's
Right.
just, I cannot wait for you guys to see what she's doing. And this time it's cool because she was the first person in, like, even almost before the writer. I think actually before the writer. So her hands are all over it.
I was just
And
saying, like, her
it's
vision
awesome.
is all over it, yeah.
Yeah. And it's awesome. Yeah.
So do you have other people on your list? Do you have that you are working with that you were excited to, but who's kind of, do you have like your dream list of creators that whether they're writers, directors, producers that you guys want to work with at POV or that
Yes.
you want to work
So
with?
we do. like dying to work with Spike Lee again. And we try to figure it out like often, and we will land on something. I'm also like, I don't know if yes, we have a list. We have a list of people. Because I don't want to exclude. And then there's so many people that like that are coming up and that are newer and
Mhm.
fresh that
Mhm.
um I haven't had a chance to work with that I'm dying to. I mean, that's I think also the fun of this, and having the infrastructure behind me with a studio that like we can take chances with people like I'm going to be working with Dominique Fishback. I'm
Oh,
super excited about that.
yes.
Like cannot wait. And she's partnered with a, a new creator who, I mean, her idea is just like it's out of this world. It's like, where did you come up with this?
Mhm.
And it's a comedy. And so I haven't done comedy since my Ellen days. So I can't wait. So that's one is Dom. I also really want to work with Jamie Foxx. Like really want to work with him. I think that we women love Jamie Foxx, like
Yes.
love.
Yes.
And so I'm dying for and obviously he's a veteran in this, but I'm dying to work with Jamie Foxx. Yeah.
And he's another one that is notoriously prepared and
Yeah.
researched and yeah, super prepared and professional when he the first day on. Yeah, that's something that I just read and always hear about him. So it sounds like it's right up your alley with
Yes.
your style.
Yes. Yes.
Is so what are you're super busy with work. You mentioned your Lane Loves list. Tell us some things that you're watching or reading or listening to right now that you're loving or that may give you a break from work or may inspire you for work.
So I just finished Ripley and I just finished Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I mean, they couldn't be
Yeah,
further opposite,
yeah.
but I found Ripley to be chilling. I loved the choice of making it black and white. I loved
Yes, the
seeing
style.
Italy
Yeah.
so empty and
Yes.
just like it was amazing. I thought the acting was superb. I loved seeing Dakota Fanning in like a role that I have not seen her in. In some ways I was like I want more. Um and I'm forgetting Sting's child's name, but thought
Oh,
they
yes.
were
Yes.
I mean
They were amazing. Yes.
amazing. So I was obsessed with Ripley and I actually want to revisit because I just feel like there's a mise en scène and a like, there's so
To
much to
step
just
into a role that Philip Seymour Hoffman had is like how
how.
and made it their own and just as chilling and I mean A plus to both. How do you have those roles that they're both like that? That was amazing.
It was amazing. And then I have always been a huge fan of the Mr. and Mrs. Smith franchise. And to just see it reimagined
Yeah,
through Donald Glover's eyes, I was like, this is amazing. I love what they did with, the IP and just like starting with that kind of like um Angelina Jolie. Like I was like, oh, I'm here. And then they just like blew it up and changed
yeah.
it. And I'm like, I can't wait for the second season. I really liked Capote and the Swans. I'm a
Mm,
huge, like, of course, I've read I love Capote. And
yeah, yeah,
I thought it was a great, delicious, fun, like juicy, soapy, just like, I was like, I'm in.
yeah.
Um, so there's a lot of stuff out that I have watched recently that I've just been really into. I haven't gotten to read anything for fun lately. There's a couple of things on my desk that I'm like, they're not for adaptation, it's just for me or
Yes.
just for like
Mhm.
self improvement, but I haven't gotten to them. We just optioned this really cool book called My Murder,
Mm.
um, that I cannot wait to break apart and like just get into it. But yeah, yeah.
We're huge readers here at Women in Entertainment, Renee and I, and our whole team, and so we're always looking for book recommendations, and we're really trying to expand all of our events and our big summit to bring in, and it's been such a fun exercise in getting to meet the publishing companies and getting to meet authors and getting to be part. And like you said, the book to screen is just, I mean, it's never been bigger and it's never been. And I love, when you read, do you, can you kind of remove yourself from your producer role? Can you read without thinking? No, it's always how, what, could this be? Could this be? Yeah, there's some great, yeah, there's some great books. And I love that we always end up in the conversation. I love your opinion of, back in the day, because I'm much older than we, a book would really had to be a movie, and that was it. It was a book, and then it was a movie, and
Mhm.
the freedom of a limited series,
Mhm.
the 8 hours instead of 2 hours, or 6 hours instead of two, and then the possibility of a second season.
Mhm.
I just think I love the I love that as a reader, to
Mhm.
think nobody's going to take this beloved book and chop it down into 90
Mhm.
minutes, or that I just that's my what's one of my favorite things of where we are creatively right now,
Mhm.
is as an avid reader, that our beloved stories come to life so differently.
Yeah, and I think thank you for saying that because I think the industry needs to remember how satisfying it is to see your favorite book turned into a limited series. I actually think um you know the pandemic, the strike, I hope there's still space for limiteds. I hear a lot of chatter about
Yeah,
everybody really wanting ongoing series
yeah,
now and less IP, more just it um like ongoing things that you can just stories and characters that you can
yeah.
make seasons and seasons on and
Mhm.
look, we need those. I've been watching Suits because I really kind of dipped in and out when it
Uh-huh.
first came on. It just was a busy time in my life, and I wasn't watching anything consistently. And I just rewatched all 9 seasons, and I was like, "Oh, I forgot how good this was." So we
Yeah,
definitely need that. But thank you for saying that because there are so many more books to adapt that would be great series.
yeah,
And I think that's what's so fun about the TV format is, falling in love with these people and these characters, like again, in a different way, like seeing it come to life. But, it feels like in this moment, we have to remind ourselves, right? That
yeah.
that like it's worth the risk and the money and the effort. Yeah.
Yeah, and if a second season, yeah, if a second season can come out of it and the story can
Right.
go on, I had so much fun watching Presumed Innocent. I don't know
Mhm.
if you've,
Yep.
but
Yep.
and and again, that one is, I think, a natural that it can go on, because you can have different cases, and you can have
Mhm.
these same characters where
Mhm.
there's some that don't quite fit that, but I agree that having the executives or the greenlighters, being able to look at both, I
Yeah.
think is,
We need
really
both.
what, yeah, we
Yeah.
need both. We need some that do end as the story as was intended.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, Layne, thank you so much for being with us. I can't believe we're already out of time. This has gone so fast. It's been fascinating to meet you. We love what you're doing. We love Lady in the Lake, and we have our big summit in LA in February,
Okay.
and we'll reach out. I would love for you and your team, and starting your business and your career trajectory, to come and speak at our summit. It would
We
be
would love that.
just so fascinating to our audience, and we get executives and creatives, certainly, but we get a lot of people that are just starting their careers, and to have to have someone that has done what you've done, and the projects that you're looking at, and the success that you're having with these, that it's just it's so helpful to to these young men and women starting out.
Thank you. Sign us up. We're there in February. And I'd love to too. I'm based in LA.
Okay.
So we should get together before then too.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Well, thank you for being with us. It was so nice meeting you.
You too. Thank you, Gretchen.
If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe and leave a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. To stay up to date with In Her Words, join the conversation by following Women in Entertainment on our social channels and subscribe to our weekly newsletter at womeninentertainment.com.